Ladies and gentlemen, let's get into the day's biggest development. It's been more than 7 hours since the income tax authorities started carrying out a survey at the BBC India offices in the national capital and, of course, the financial capital, Mumbai. According to government sources, surveys at the BBC premises are in connection with alleged tax evasion and irregularities. The tax authorities have insisted that these are neither raids nor searches, only surveys that are being conducted at the BBC offices. And this comes weeks after the BBC released a 2-episode series on Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and the first episode, with a major focus on the 2002 Gujarat riots, raised so many objections in India that the government eventually blocked the circulation of the links in India. A full-blown political controversy has erupted over the survey, with the Congress and the others saying that the BBC is paying the price for being critical of the Prime Minister. The ruling BJP has slammed the opposition for backing the BBC, which the BJP has also claimed is a corrupt and biased organisation which has an agenda against India. So is the opposition right in linking the BBC docu-series to the IT survey? Before we deep dive into that and also set up the face-off, let us just quickly tell you what has transpired through the day. Here's the timeline. So it all started soon after about 10:45, and about 11:30 a.m. there was confirmation that income tax teams have reached the offices of the BBC in Delhi and in Mumbai. About 11:35 a.m. the IT teams began the survey at the BBC offices. At 12 noon, sources within the income tax department said that the exercise is a survey and not a search or a raid. At about 12:36 p.m., the opposition called the IT survey intimidation. 12:45 p.m., sources telling CNN News 18 that BBC has asked its staff to stay at home, those who are going to come in for the day duties of the day and the evening shifts. At about 12:55 p.m., sources also told CNN News 18 that the IT or the income tax department has confiscated the phones of those staff who were there in the offices already. At about 1:26 p.m., sources further said that IT has accused BBC of tax evasion. At about 2 p.m., the BJP called the BBC Bhrasht Bakwas Cooperation. And then at 2:10 p.m., government sources said non-compliance with transfer pricing rules. That's the reason for this raid. 2:58 p.m., the BBC issued a statement saying, "We are cooperating." 5:25 p.m., UK government sources said closely monitoring reports of tax surveys. At 6:25 p.m., the INB minister said the IT department's time to time conducts these surveys. They will release a press note and a detail. That's supposed to come from the CBDT. At about 7:10 p.m., cell phones were returned to the BBC employees. Nikhil Lakhwani is joining us live from the BBC office in the national capital. This is at the HT House. Floors 5 and 6 are occupied by the BBC there. They run their language operations, their digital operations from there. Nikhil, what's happening now? Are the IT officials still in these BBC offices?
Well, Anand, as per the fresh updates, a team of the IT officials, they are still present very much inside the office, which is situated in the national capital at the KG Mark, which is the precise location. And in fact, we have been given to understand that at about 11:30 a.m., the team had reached out at this particular place, and close to 10 to 15 officials of the IT department, they are currently carrying out all the exercise. But also, additionally, we have been given to understand that all the cell phones have been duly returned to the employees, since they can inform their family members as to what the current update is all about. But nobody is allowed to move outside the office. That means all of the people, all of the staff members, employees who are very much part of the BBC office, they are in fact very much inside. The cell phones have been returned, but they are asked not to share any of the information which is part of the exercise. But also we have been given to understand that not just the financial documents or the auditing of the transactions are taking place, but also at the same time each and every system, Anand, it is thoroughly being scanned by the IT officials, and so far only 50% of the scanning has taken place. That means either they will have to come tomorrow or they are going to seal the office. For this thing, we will have to wait for the official statement which has to be released from the IT department. But currently what we are given to understand that this is the so-called survey which is being carried out not just in the national capital but in the Mumbai as well. We have seen that a team of the IT official, they had reached out at that location as well, and they are going through all the documents. They are scanning not just balance sheets of the previous years, but also they are scanning the transactions which have taken place in last few years, and also at the same time they are checking if there are any of the tax evasion which has taken place from this particular company. Are they following all the rules?
In Mumbai, the searches are happening largely in their BKC offices. The car office, we are given to understand the employees were asked to go away or go back home because it was a small office, but they have a huge studio and operations in Kalina, and that's where the searches have been going on. But coming back to Delhi, is there a warrant? Because there is a video that came out, Nikhil, and at that time they very clearly, the audio of that showed that income tax officials were actually asked to show their iCard. There were those who were resisting, and the official is also seen in that video, which came from inside the premises, saying that they were made to wait for more than 10 minutes before the office was opened, and that they've actually stuck a warrant for search right outside. So they came prepared.
Anand, so since we are talking about the income tax agency, so we are already assuming that they have a responsibility to play out, and also given the backdrop of the same, we know that how the controversy erupted when the BBC document in 2 parts was released in India. Later it was blocked by the government of India. So definitely and this is something which we are assuming that they must be having all the proper warrant to carry out the so-called survey, which is also currently underway inside the office. And at the same time, the evidence of the same is that a team of the Delhi police, they were also accompanied by the IT officials. So they must be having each and every required detail and permission to go through and to scan each and every document. And this is something which is very much important, because as per the highly placed sources, initially we were given to understand that only the accounts and the finance department, they are the ones who are on the radar. But now we have been given to understand that each and every and every workstation, it is thoroughly being scanned, and the passwords have been sought by the IT officials from the employees.
Now, we're just seeing that video. In that video, the young person with the spectacles on, he's the IT official. He's been asked by the BBC employees to show his iCard, and then he's there alleging and telling some of the BBC officials, "You made us wait for more than 10 minutes outside. You locked up. You didn't allow us inside. And please go and check. There is a warrant already there."
ऐसे बिना वारंटी गेट खोलेंगे?
वारंट आपको पता है, वारंट सील हो चुका है, देखा हुआ वारंट, तब अंदर किया आप लोग। चलो आप लोग फोन रखो इधर,
आराम से तो बात करो यार।
फोन गेट खुलवा रहे हैं आप 10 मिनट से, गेट कौन खुलवा रहे हैं आप लोग?
ऐसे बिना वारंटी गेट खोलेंगे?
वारंट आपको पता है, वारंट सील हो चुका है, देखा हुआ वारंट, तब अंदर किया आप लोग। चलो आप लोग फोन रखो इधर,
आराम से तो बात करो।
So everybody being asked to stop using their phones, and this video was made just before all the phones were switched off. But clearly there was an atmosphere which was not very, very conducive or congenial but among the two parties, the IT sleuths and of course the employees at the BBC. Now a massive showdown has also erupted over this entire IT survey. The opposition has launched an all-out attack at Prime Minister Narendra Modi, saying he continues to brazenly show India's slide into dictatorship. The BJP has hit back at the Congress party, saying as to why the party is standing with anti-nationals. The opposition has claimed that the BBC offices are being raided because of documentary on Prime Minister Narendra Modi's alleged role in the Gujarat riots. But BJP termed the BBC Bhrasht Bakwas Corporation. Opposition is targeting the centre, claiming those who speak the truth are being hounded. The BJP trained guns on the opposition and said that the opposition is defending the BBC, which has a black history and is full of an anti-India agenda. The opposition claiming its vengeance to strangulate remotely critical voices. The BJP said that the IT department is working as per the rule of law. Now, the opposition has called the IT survey a predictable move of harassing anyone who refuses to fall in line. The BJP, meanwhile, has said that the probe agencies are no longer a caged parrot. Now, it's a bit rich, though, of the Congress party, especially to act holier than thou on this particular issue. And here is why. In 1970, Indira Gandhi-led government expelled the BBC for over 2 years over negative portrayal of India in a show. In 1975, BBC was amongst foreign media again, banned by Indira Gandhi during the emergency. 2009, BBC issued income tax notice under Section 148 of the IT Act. 2015, a BBC documentary on the Delhi gang rape case has also been banned in the country. And there have been multiple rounds of litigation that have happened and to the course where the BBC has been at the centre of some controversy or the other. But the opposition is up at arms and is pointing fingers at the government turning back and questioning the opposition, and of course, the role of the BBC. Listen.
यहाँ हम जेपीसी की मांग कर रहे हैं अडानी के मामले में, और वहाँ सरकार बीबीसी के पीछे पड़ी हुई है। विनाशकाले विपरीत बुद्धि।
बीबीसी के अगर कृत्य देखें, जिसके उदाहरण मैं आपके समक्ष अभी पेश करूंगा, तो ये पूरे विश्व की सबसे भ्रष्ट बकवास कॉरपोरेशन हो गई है। बीबीसी का जो इतिहास है, कलंकित, काला, द्वेष भावना से भारत के खिलाफ कार्य करने का रहा है। और दुख की बात यह है कि बीबीसी का प्रोपेगेंडा और कांग्रेस का एजेंडा एक साथ मेल खाता है।
So who's right and who's wrong? Is it okay to link a probe with a docu-series, or is it too far-fetched? Aprajita Sarangi of the BJP is with us. She's also a Lok Sabha MP and national spokesperson. We also have Krishank Manne, BRS spokesperson. My namaste and Jai Hind. Thank you very, very much. Krishank Manne.
Namaskar, Anandji. Yeah.
Isn't it a little too far-fetched to allege, oh, they made the docu-series in the UK, so the government is raiding them in India?
Well, Anandji, there are 3 points. First, if the BJP is calling it a bakwas corporation today, it was none other than Modi ji who gave the authenticity to BBC, comparing with our Indian media with none other than Doordarshan at one point of time. He compared Doordarshan to BBC and said BBC is a great media. And today, just because they are reporting against Modi ji, it doesn't become overnight a bakwas corporation, number one. Number two, if there are any IT evasions, the IT evasions would be by the management. But who are being forced? Whose phones are being confiscated? They are our Indian journalists. They are our media personnel, Anandji. That is our point. That is our concern. Who have evaded tax? Those journalists who are working there, those Indian journalists who are currently in that office in BBC. Number three, how earlier few media institutions, I don't know if they could be named or not, Quint or NDTV, how this whole IT raid, CBI, and then taking over the institutions has definitely raised a question on the current government of India, that how you want to take control. We don't have any love towards BBC. We were not the one who compared BBC to Doordarshan and said that BBC is a great media than our Doordarshan. It was Modi ji himself. But why suddenly today?
Right.
That is the reason today the documentary is being questioned.
Let Aprajita Sarangi answer. Let Aprajita Sarangi answer. If it is a Bhrasht Bakwas corporation, how are they still operating in India, and what is the proof to call them Bhrasht? Aprajita Sarangi.
A very good evening. Let us understand what's happening. The IT people are carrying out survey under section 133A of the IT Act 1961. So I would definitely like to mention very clearly that it is a survey and it is not a search or a raid. And in the past, several notices have been issued to BBC because they have been evading the taxes. Let's understand. And there has been no positive response from them. And that is why, again, this has happened. Our people, rather the IT people, the government people, had to go and start a survey. And they have always been defined, they have always been non-compliant under transfer pricing rules. And that is why IT department is doing its job, as CBI does its job, as ED does its job. And I think it is the responsibility of each one of us, mature citizens of our country, to let them do their job. I fail to understand, whenever there is action on part of these organizations, there is tension among all these opposition parties. And we have a feeling that anti-national propaganda is opposition's agenda, not just Congress, it is opposition's agenda. Now here, I have a news clipping. Please have a look. I'm showing it to you. This dates 14/8/1975, and this is a news item which had come out in the Indian Express. Now here, this particular news item talks of the Congress MPs who at that point of time had issued a joint statement saying that BBC never loses any opportunity to tarnish the image of Bharat, and we condemn it. Now, in 1970, I'm talking of the BBC's role in entire anti-India work that they have been doing. In 1970, Indira Gandhi had banned this corporation for 2 years.
No, we've put out all those. We put out all that information, but the geopolitical scenario at that time was different. Times at that time were different, and the BBC has been operating in India for many, many decades thereafter. But my question, Aprajita ji, Krishank ji, please allow me this, and I'll come back to you, sir. My question is that just because somebody puts out a documentary against a political leader, how does that become anti-national? Secondly, one minute. Secondly, if the IT sleuths are supposed to do their job and they have to come to a conclusion, so hasn't the BJP also jumped the gun by calling them bhrasht and bakwas?
Now, BBC
Bakwas is still subjective, but bhrasht, you're making an allegation that they are corrupt. On what basis?
BBC has come out with this documentary after the Supreme Court has absolved Honorable Prime Minister of all responsibilities in the Godhra riots. So I think when Supreme Court is in the matter, when it has taken cognizance, when it has passed its 452-page judgment, and there is absolutely no reason why this kind of documentary will come out, and we are talking of none other than Honorable Prime Minister of the country. Same when we are talking of the Prime Minister who is loved by one and all, I think if we have this kind of language, we are speaking against the Indians,
No, that is an inference that you draw, but that does not mean that does not mean that an elected Prime Minister of the country is not open to criticism. Even the Prime Minister himself says that I welcome constructive criticism. So again, when you allege as a political party that what the BBC has put out is bakwas, so that's subjective inference, and you can say that based on the information that we have or the facts that we have, they have been economical with the facts, so that's why we think it is bakwas or a hatchet job, however you want to call it. But when you call them corrupt, have you not jumped to the conclusion before the IT sleuths themselves have come to a conclusion on whether or not they are in infringement of Indian laws?
Haven't I mentioned about 2 minutes back that demand notices had been issued a couple of times, and instead of responding positively to the demand notices, BBC preferred to keep mum. They were defiant. They were irresponsive. So therefore, in fact, this particular survey is being carried out, and I'm sure we will get to know the truth in no time.
Right.
But I would definitely like to reiterate that Supreme Court has absolved our Prime Minister of all responsibilities in its 452-page judgment. I repeat.
You are more than welcome. You are more than welcome to reiterate that and also take BBC to court or sue them for libel. The government or the Prime Minister on behalf of the Prime Minister, or you're more than welcome to sue them for libel if you believe that they have deliberately pursued the wrong. That's your legal right, ma'am. But to call them corrupt before there is any evidence against it, is that not jumping the gun, is my question. I'll park it there. I'll go to Krishank Manne. Yes, Krishank Manne.
Well, Anand bhai, the point here is we're not talking about fiction or non-fiction, because I don't know if you've seen the content in the video, because we haven't got the opportunity after Government of India pulling it off, banning it or removing it from the Twitter handles, because it is the statements of none other than Modi ji speaking to a journalist. It is Modi ji in full conscious. He has spoken to the journalist. He has given interview. So when he did not have a problem to speak to a journalist, then
here is the correction. Here is the correction. The reference there to that interview where you say, yes, he heaped praise on the BBC, but because of the way they can drive opinion, the stature that they enjoy, his objective of putting forth the BBC as an example is because the BBC even today is considered as a beacon for journalism, and it sets the international agenda. When it comes on the BBC, the world takes notice, it is able to drive opinion. So his thought process is, why is the DD or Doordarshan, our national broadcaster, not able to drive that kind of an opinion as far as Bharat is concerned? I have also seen that interview. My question to you is, Krishank ji, let me ask you. Krishank ji, let me ask you. Please, is it not a little rich coming from certain opposition voices when they talk about the fact that you are trying to police the media, when we know what happened with a certain channel in Mumbai, Please tell me, if some documentary like this comes in Telangana, in the local state media, what will be the reaction of the local political parties? What happens in states like Bengal, Rajasthan, in any particular state, when those that in power are questioned? Is there not an attempt to control what is being the questions that are being asked? So is it not rich from one entity to point finger at another entity?
No, one thing, Anandji, a point is a documentary which holds the leader himself giving an interview. He has spoken when there was no problem for Modi ji to speak to the journalist. Then why are they so apprehensive when people want to see it? Why are they stopping?
Correct.
From?
But what would you do? Let me ask you: if there was an interview in the past that has been done by one tall leader of Telangana, and that is put out in a context which is totally variant to over the passage of time over 2 decades, what would you step out and first stand out and do? Would you not stand there and say, ban this, burn this, shut them down? Will there not be stone pelting at that media house? And will they not be dragged by the cops and arrested under various acts for trying to create social unrest? And would you not be one of the first to say, how can they say this about my leader? I'm asking you. Hold your hand to your heart and please tell me.
Well, Anandji, I should tell you that every day, our leader KCRG is misquoted. In fact, there are YouTube channels who abuse him also. Well, I'll keep that apart. The point here is, see, we've seen the Royce, when there were legal issues in that institution, the Royce faced the trial, not the journalists who worked in NDTV. The mishandle of today, the IT with the journalists in BBC who are working there, those employees or those journalists.
Why stop them? You're asking them. You're saying why stop them? Why curb them from leaving? Why hold them back?
Now, why snatch? What kind of survey is this of grabbing their mobile phones? Is that a survey or is that bulldozing?
Now, Aprajita Sarangi, please respond.
See, this is intriguing. The IT people are carrying out the survey, and suddenly all these people who belong to the opposition camp stand with the BBC. Just because BBC brought out a documentary.
It is even Anand Bhai or CNN also, madam, with all due respect.
Just because a documentary was brought out which was not right, which was against Prime Minister Modi's works in Gujarat, whatever it was. So I fail to understand why should they all be feeling so very tense today.
It is
all of them are very angry. All of them are annoyed.
They are questioning the timing. They are questioning the timing. The income tax department is welcome to go ahead and survey, scrutinize any organization who it believes is not giving its due to the nation, and if they are trying to do aji baji with the funds, transfer pricing or otherwise. It's the timing one. It's the timing one. The manner two, and the third part, Aprajita ji, the IT department will continue to do its job. But if you as a party and as an entity believe that the Prime Minister is being deliberately defamed, then we would like you to see the BBC being hauled up in court, the BBC being sued for libel, and that suit being proven and won. That's the message. That is the message when you say that you show responsibility in your journalism when you put out the facts, don't be economical with the truth and don't pursue an agenda. Rather than perhaps what is being alleged by the opposition is that don't intimidate people and don't try and curb what many would say, the freedom of speech and the freedom to report. But the argument still remains, the sleuths are still doing their job, the survey is still on. It's quite a long survey. We'd see what the net takeout is and then we'll take this forward. For the moment,